They want you to wait a year for compost, sometimes two. Every mainstream gardening guide, every extension office pamphlet, every composting article written for beginners says the same thing. Throw your scraps in a bin. Turn it occasionally, and in 12 to 18 months, you will have usable soil. A year to decompose a banana peel and some leaves. Ask yourself who benefits from that timeline. While you wait, you buy bags of soil. While you wait, you buy bags of compost. While you wait, you buy bags of fertilizer, amendments, and conditioners. Every month that your pile sits there slowly rotting is a month the garden center has you as a customer. The bagged soil and compost market in North America generates over $3.5 billion annually. The synthetic fertilizer industry adds $193 billion. These industries do not need composting to fail. They need it to be slow. Slow enough that you give up. Slow enough that you buy the bag instead. Slow enough that making your own feels like a hobby for patient people, not a realistic alternative to the checkout line. But here is what they do not teach you. Composting is not a waiting game. It is a heat engine. And the difference between a pile that rots for a year and a pile that finishes in 14 days is not time. It is temperature. There is a method practiced by Amish farming communities for generations, formalized by Dr. Robert Raba at the University of California, Berkeley, and validated by soil scientists across 3 continents, that converts raw organic waste into finished, professional-grade planting soil in exactly 14 days. Not months, not seasons. 14 days. It does not require a tumbler. It does not require a bin. It does not require a worm farm, an activator spray, a thermometer from the garden center, or a single purchased input. It requires a pile of trash, air, water, and the understanding of one biological principle that changes everything. Heat is the engine, not time. Welcome to the Invincible Method. Today I am going to show you how to build a thermophilic reactor out of garbage, and why the industry taught you the slowest possible version of this process on purpose. The NEN slow ROTU model that most people associate with composting is called cold composting, or passive composting. It works, but it works at the lowest possible metabolic rate. The microbial communities in a cold pile operate at ambient temperature, 50 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit in most climates. At those temperatures, decomposition is sluggish. Pathogen kill is non-existent. Weed seeds survive. The material breaks down gradually through a succession of fungal and bacterial populations that take months to complete their work. This is composting on life support. It is the biological equivalent of asking a car to drive cross-country in first gear. It will get there, eventually. But nature has a faster gear, and it has been using it for as long as organic matter has existed. When a large mass of nitrogen-rich and carbon-rich organic material is piled together in the right proportions, with adequate moisture and oxygen, the initial bacterial populations do not just decompose, they combust. Not literally, metabolically. The bacteria consume simple sugars and proteins so rapidly that their metabolic heat output raises the internal temperature of the pile from ambient to 130, 140, 150, sometimes over 160 degrees Fahrenheit, within 24 to 48 hours. This is called the thermophilic phase. And it is not a gentle process. It is a biological detonation. At 130 degrees and above, a completely different class of microorganisms takes over. Thermophilic bacteria, primarily species of Bacillus and Thermus, that thrive in conditions that would kill every organism in your cold compost bin. These heat-loving specialists consume organic matter at a rate 10 to 20 times faster than their mesophilic counterparts. They are the biological equivalent of an industrial furnace, and they are present in every pile of organic waste on the planet, dormant, waiting for conditions to trigger their activation. Dr. Robert Robb at UC Berkeley formalized this principle into a repeatable protocol in the 1970s. His method, sometimes called the Berkeley method, demonstrated that by controlling 3 variables, carbon to nitrogen ratio, moisture content, and oxygen supply, any pile of organic waste could be driven through the complete thermophilic cycle and produce finished compost in 14 to 21 days. The Amish farming communities of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana had been doing this for generations before Rob published a word. They did not call it thermophilic composting. They called it hot composting. They learned it from the pile itself, from the steam that rose when they turned the manure and straw mix on the third morning, from the heat that hit their hands when they pushed a fence post into the center, from the dark, crumbly, sweet-smelling material they pulled out 2 weeks later. The principle has been validated across continents. Sir Albert Howard developed the indoor method in India in the 1930s, layered plant material and manure achieving thermophilic temperatures. In tropical conditions, complete decomposition in 3 to 6 weeks. His work, published in Erard and Agricultural Testament in 1940, influenced organic farming movements worldwide. In New Zealand, indigenous Maori communities composted fish waste and plant material in mounded piles that steamed visibly within days. Every culture that worked with large volumes of organic waste independently discovered the same phenomenon. Pile it right, and it cooks itself. Municipal composting facilities operate exclusively on thermophilic principles, achieving finished compost in 3 to 8 weeks. They understand that heat is the engine, but the version they teach you at home, the cold bin, the slow tumbler, the passive pile, is the version that takes the longest. Not because it is easier, because it keeps you buying bags while you wait. A thermophilic compost pile is a biological reactor. Like any engine, it needs 3 inputs in the right proportions. In the right proportions. Get anyone wrong and the pile stalls. Get all 3 right, and you have finished soil in 2 weeks. Variable 1, the fuel ratio. Every piece of organic matter on Earth contains carbon and nitrogen. The ratio between them determines how fast microbes can consume it. Microbes need carbon for energy. It is their fuel. They need nitrogen for reproduction. It is their building material. The optimal ratio is approximately 25 to 30 parts carbon for every 1 part nitrogen. Forget the academic language. Here is the rule. Greens are nitrogen, grass clippings, food scraps, coffee grounds, fresh manure, green plant trimmings. Anything that is wet, slimy, or smells when it rots is nitrogen heavy. These are the heat generators. They are the accelerant. Browns are carbon. Dry leaves, straw, cardboard, wood chips, dried plant stalks, newspaper, sawdust. Anything that is dry, crunchy, or brown is carbon heavy. These are the structural bulk. They feed the fire and keep it from collapsing into a wet, anaerobic mess. The ratio by volume, which is what you can actually estimate by eye, is roughly equal parts greens and browns. Fill a bucket with grass clippings. Fill a bucket with dry leaves, alternate layers. That is close enough to 31. Carbon to nitrogen by weight to ignite the thermophilic response. If your pile does not heat up, within 48 hours you have too much brown. Add more green. If your pile smells like ammonia, sharp, eye-watering, you have too much green. Add more brown. The nose is the only instrument you need. Variable 2, moisture. The microbes doing the work are aquatic organisms. They live in the thin film of water that coats every particle in the pile. Too dry and they desiccate. Too wet and the water fills the air spaces. And the pile goes anaerobic, switching from thermophilic decomposition to putrefactive rot. That is when it smells like death and attracts flies. The target moisture level has a perfect physical test. Grab a handful of material from the center of the pile and squeeze it hard. Water should barely drip from the bottom of your fist. 1 or 2 drops, no more. If no water comes out, the pile is too dry. This is called the wrung-out sponge test. It has been used by composters for centuries. If the pile is too dry, spray it with a hose during the next turn. If it is too wet, add dry brown material. Variable 3, oxygen. This is the variable that separates a 14-day pile from a 14-month pile. And it is the variable most people get wrong, because the industry sells you bins and tumblers that make it almost impossible to get right. Thermophilic bacteria are obligate aerobes. They consume oxygen as fast as they consume carbon. In a large active pile, the internal oxygen supply is depleted within 12 to 24 hours. Temperature drops. The pile stalls. Anaerobic organisms begin to colonize, producing hydrogen sulfide and organic acids. The smell of failure. The fix is violent and simple. You flip the pile, not stir it, not poke it with a stick. You take a pitchfork and physically disassemble the pile, pulling the outside material to a new center and rebuild it. This is the oxygen injection, and it is like hitting the nitrous on the engine. Within hours, the bacteria reactivate. Temperature spikes back to 140 to 160 degrees. Decomposition accelerates. The material visually changes. The Berkeley Protocol requires turning every other day for the first week, then every 3 days for the second week. That is approximately 5 to 7 total turns across 14 days. Total physical labor for the entire process, roughly 90 minutes. And the output is finished, dark, crumbly, sweet-smelling compost, biologically identical to the richest forest topsoil on Earth. A sealed plastic tumbler, the kind the garden center sells for $120 to $300, makes this nearly impossible. These products are engineered to slow compost. You do not have a composting system. You have a slow rot container. The bagged compost industry depends on one behavioral pattern: the homeowner who generates waste and buys fertility to compensate. A gardener running a 14-day thermophilic cycle produces unlimited, free, finished compost from material they already generate. That gardener never buys a bag of compost, never buys potting soil, never buys fertilizer. A single 4x4 foot pile produces approximately 15 to 20 cubic feet per cycle. A bag retails for $8 to $15. A single 4x4 foot pile produces approximately 15 to 20 cubic feet per cycle. A bag retails for $8 to $15. The industry's response: make the fast version invisible and promote the slow version as the only option. Every beginner composting guide teaches cold composting. Add scraps, turn occasionally, wait 6 to 12 months. Tsao. This is not the best method. It is the slowest. The thermophilic method is taught in soil science programs and practiced by professional farmers. This is not the best method. It is the slowest. The thermophilic method is taught in soil science programs and practiced by professional farmers. The composting tumbler is the perfect symbol, a product designed to make composting look like it requires a product. The composting tumbler is the perfect symbol, a product designed to make composting look like it requires a product. The tumbler does not replace the bag. It delays the moment you realize the bag was never necessary. Here is the protocol. It requires a pitchfork, a hose, and organic waste. Nothing else. Minimum size, 3 feet wide by 3 feet deep by 3 feet tall. This is the critical thermal mass. Below this volume, the pile cannot generate and retain enough heat to sustain the thermophilic phase. Bigger is fine, smaller will stall. Layer construction. Start with a base of coarse brown material, sticks, woody stems, corn stalks, about 4 inches deep. This creates an air channel under the pile. Then alternate layers of greens and browns, each 2 to 4 inches thick, a layer of grass clippings, a layer of dry leaves, a layer of kitchen scraps, a layer of shredded cardboard. Repeat until you reach 3 feet. As you build, spray each layer lightly with water from the hose. You want the wrung-out sponge consistency throughout, moist but not dripping. The water activates the microbes immediately. Do not add meat, dairy, or oils. Not because they will not compost, they will, and fast, but because they attract animals in an open pile. Stick to plant-based greens, manure if available, and any carbon-heavy brown material. Cardboard is one of the most effective browns available. Tear it into hand-sized pieces and use it as your primary carbon source if leaves are scarce. Cap the pile with a 4-inch layer of browns. This insulates the top and reduces moisture loss. Day 1 to 2. Do nothing. The pile is igniting. Mesophilic bacteria consume simple sugars and generate heat that triggers the thermophilic succession. By hour 48, internal temperature should climb past 130 degrees. The heat check. Push a piece of rebar or a long stick into the center. Leave it 2 minutes. Pull it out and grab the buried end. If it is too hot to hold, if you instinctively pull your hand away, the pile is in the thermophilic zone. No thermometer needed. If the stick feels warm but not hot, add more green material and check again in 24 hours. Day 3. First turn. Disassemble with a pitchfork and rebuild adjacent. Outside goes to center, center goes to outside. The pile will steam visibly when you open it. Water vapor driven off by microbial metabolism running above 140 degrees. That steam is the visible proof the engine is running. Day 5, second turn. Material is visibly changing. Individual scraps are unrecognizable. Color darkening. Volume decreased 20 to 30%. Day 7, third turn. Check moisture. Spray with hose as you rebuild if the center feels dry. If temperature has dropped significantly, add fresh grass clippings or coffee grounds to the center. Day 9, fourth turn. Material is uniformly dark. Smells earthy, like forest floor after rain. Volume decreased 40 to 50%. You are entering the curing phase. Day 11, fifth turn. Texture shifting from fibrous to crumbly. Individual materials merging into a single homogeneous substance. Day 14, final assessment. Pull a handful from the center, dark brown to black, crumbles like moist cake, smells sweet and earthy. No recognizable scraps, no ammonia, no sour odor. This is finished compost, teeming with billions of bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and nematodes per gram. Its biological activity is vastly superior to any sterilized bagged product on the shelf. Put it next to a $15 bag of Rhine Premium Organic Compost from the Garden Center. The bag will be uniform, sterile, lifeless, manufactured to look consistent, not to function biologically. Your pile will be complex, alive, and loaded with the microbial community your soil needs. You made this from trash, in the time between paychecks, for nothing. One critical detail: at 140 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, the sustained temperature of a properly managed thermophilic pile, weed seeds are killed, pathogen bacteria are killed, fungal disease spores are killed. The EPA's composting standards specify that sustained temperatures above 131 degrees for 3 consecutive days are sufficient for pathogen destruction. Your pile exceeds that threshold by day 3. Cold compost never achieves this. A passive pile that stays below 100 degrees preserves every weed seed and pathogen, delivering them into your garden when you spread the material. The thermophilic pile is self-sterilizing. It kills what it should kill and feeds what it should feed in 14 days. Here is what you now have. If you have followed this series, you own a complete closed-loop food production system that costs nothing to operate and depends on no industry to maintain. You built a clay seed ball and threw it on the ground. A garden planted itself. You buried a clay pot and it watered itself. You covered the soil with leaves and it fertilized itself. You let the weak plants die and saved their seeds. The garden adapted itself. You sealed seeds in darkness and grew microgreens in a closet. You nested paper bags and grew tomatoes on a porch. You soaked seeds in a jar and built a perpetual kitchen harvest. And now, you take every scrap of organic waste that system generates, pile it in your yard, and in 14 days, you have created the soil to do it all over again. The end product feeds the beginning. The cycle closes. Nothing is purchased, nothing is wasted, nothing is dependent on a store, a truck, or an industry. You have a choice. 2 different futures for your garden. You can drive to the garden center this spring and load your trunk with bags of manufactured soil, sterilized, lifeless, shipped from a facility that processed the same organic waste you threw in the trash last week. You can pay $15 a bag for material that has been sitting in a warehouse long enough to lose most of its biological activity. You can keep treating your kitchen scraps as garbage and your garden's fertility as a product. Or you can pile your waste in the yard, turn it 5 times, and in 2 weeks hold finished soil in your hands. Darker, richer, more biologically alive than anything with a barcode. Nature does not compost slowly, industry composts slowly, because fast compost eliminates the need for everything they sell. The thermophilic engine has been running for as long as organic matter has existed. It does not need your patience. It does not need your money. It needs a pile, a pitchfork, and 14 days. The knowledge survives. What you do with it is yours. If this changed how you think about waste, subscribe to the Invincible Method and hit the bell. Share this with the gardener in your life who is still buying bags of dirt. Every like pushes this past the algorithm that profits from your patience. The next method drops soon, and it connects everything. The tumbler does not replace the bag. It delays the moment you realize the bag was never necessary.